Tech Support. Written by H. Alan Birch. Read by Harry Bullman. Meyer screwed his eyes closed to block out the harsh airlock lights. Waking up from stasis, even from a relatively short journey of 8 weeks, always left him with a nasty hangover.
Computer!
Meyer commanded, shouting a little over the whining hiss on the airlock door.
Dim the lights to 4.
The computer responded with Sungway Industries' signature, and the lights dimmed. Meyer breathed a sigh of relief and massaged his forehead. The airlock door soon stopped hissing, all pressures now equalized. The door slid open, and Meyer stepped through, the kit bag in his right hand jangling as he walked. Upon entering the station reception, he immediately covered his eyes again. The lights in here were as bright as they had first been in the airlock.
Lights! 4!
Meyer shouted. Another, and the lights went down again. Meyer sighed and his shoulders sagged.
Computer, he said, lower lights in all public areas to 4.
That should keep him from a nasty shock each time he opened a door. Now it was time to set to work. Meyer called on the computer again.
Lead me to ops.
A door, only a few meters to his left, opened. A warm blue light began to pulse in a straight line across the floor, directing Meyer through the door.
The blue guidance line will take you to operations.
The first time the computer had actually spoken to him. Meyer had heard so many Sungway stations say the same thing in that same female voice with the calm Earth accent. He spoke the next line along with her.
If the guidance line does not appear or you require non-visual directions, please ask for direction settings.
Meyer had been coming out to maintain these automated outposts for 3 years now, and he knew all of that voice's stock phrases by heart. Sometimes on long stasis journeys, that voice filled his dreams. Following the guidance line, Meyer was led into a long, white corridor. Like all of the corridors on these stations, it was clean and functional. Although this one was a little unusual. Unlike most featureless rooms he was forced to work in, the whole wall to his right was a long observation window. As he walked, Meyer looked out toward the dark expanse of space. He could just see the nose of his maintenance ship peeking out from behind the station's primary docking platform. Odd. Most of these unmanned stations were built without windows. Better not waste time and do a preliminary check.
Computer, confirm current maintenance status,
Meyer called out. The computer responded in its usual Earth accent.
Sungway Testing Facility, designation WLGF-9613, is currently experiencing minor directory issues. An error report has been logged, and a qualified Sungway engineer will arrive soon.
Soon was a more than relative term. A lie, some would say. Meyer had left 4 hours after the report was logged, and even for a nearby station like this, it had taken 2 months for him to arrive. The computer continued talking.
Your engineer's name is Henry Meyer, and will be able to provide the necessary assistance you require. In the meantime, you may experience some incorrect or reduced service from the subject feeding system.
Meyer stopped walking.
Subject feeding?
He said aloud. The computer didn't respond. Meyer frowned. It wasn't that unusual to have living things on these unmanned stations. Lab rats, hydroponic plants. But here... Meyer looked at the observation window. Not through it, at it. He picked up his pace and followed the guidance line through a left-hand door and entered operations. Operations was a blank white cube of a room. After stepping in, The door closed behind Meyer without leaving any trace of seam in the wall. "Work surface," Meyer said. With a quiet rasp, a long shelf extruded from the wall directly in front of Meyer, about level with his navel. He walked up to the shelf and laid his kit bag onto it. "Open maintenance screens," he told the empty room. Instantly, 8 hologram monitors blossomed open on the blank white walls. Meyer quickly scanned his eyes over the performance meters and station manifests, and quickly found something he didn't want to see. "Ah, fuck!" he cursed. "I fucking knew it!" Under the station's manifest was a list of distinctly human names. Savid Gupta, Lacey Nguyen, Chuetel Unkoba, and a lot more. All he had left was the hope that someone liked to give their lab rats really boring names. "Computer," he asked, "are there any people aboard this station besides me?"
Yes. Sungway Testing Facility Designation WLGF-9613 is currently in use by Landers and Trivedi PLC to perform voluntary human testing of...
Meyer stopped listening and tugged at his hair. No, he groaned. "I really didn't want this today." He let go the grip on his hair, sighed, and reluctantly asked, "Computer, do the human passengers aboard require a welfare check?" It was Sungway's protocol that if human passengers were aboard a station during any maintenance visit, engineers were required to carry out welfare checks if deemed necessary by the automated system. Meyer was good at his job, but checking on people living in isolation for what can be years at a time was not something he was professionally or emotionally qualified for. The computer had been cut short from its speech and took a moment to answer his new question.
A welfare check is required for the passengers of Sungway Testing Facility Designation WLGF-9613. Reports of injuries and medical emergencies among passengers have increased by 600%.
600%? Meyer echoed. He felt the bottom fall out of his stomach. Reduced service of the subject feeding system? Increased medical emergencies? All those weeks he'd been sleeping on the journey here, those poor bastards must have been starving to death. It'd be a miracle if they were still alive. Meyer scrambled for his kit bag, spilling dozens of steel instruments out of the bag and onto the floor. He managed to find the emergency transponder and smashed the transmit button so hard he almost broke the touchscreen.
Welcome to the Sungway Emergency Transmission System.
The transponder spoke in the same calm voice as the station computer.
Please record your message at the tone.
"This is Sungway engineer Henry Meyer," he gasped. "Immediate medical emergency team is needed at testing station WLG... fuck!" Meyer was shaking. He felt like he could barely speak, let alone remember the damn designation number. "Computer!" he cried. "Confirm station designation!"
This is Sungway Testing Facility Designation WLGF-9613.
The computer happily recited. "There!" Meyer screamed at the transponder. "That's where I am! Get here quick! God, please get here quick! The fucking food wasn't working! These people have been starving for 2... The transponder cut him off.
Thank you. Your recorded message is now being transmitted to all Sungway frequencies at high priority. Help will arrive soon. Please remember that all Sungway employees are legally required to provide emergency assistance to Sungway's clients to the best of their ability. Please be aware that transmitting this message does not fulfill this requirement."
Tears started stinging in Meyer's eyes. Oh God! He almost choked on the words. He didn't want to be part of this.
Please remember that all Sungway employees are...
The transponder was looping, its calm voice mocking Meyer's panic. "Okay!" Meyer shouted. "Okay! Computer, lead me to the other people on board." The same blue guidance line sprouted on the floor, running from his feet to a door that was now appearing in the far left wall. And computer, please prepare medical protocols to treat multiple patients for malnutrition. Meyer wiped his nose on his wrist and tried to steel himself for what he was about to see. He took a step towards the door when the station computer spoke.
Malnutrition treatment protocols are not necessary.
What? Meyer turned and looked up at the hologram monitors on the wall. These people are starving. What do you mean?
No passengers on board are currently suffering from malnutrition.
Meyer shook his head. He didn't understand. You said medical emergencies had increased by 600%. What's hurting them?
The two highest causes of injuries have been identified as other passengers and necessary use of the negative reinforcement system.
Other passengers? Meyer muttered. Wait, negative reinforcement? What's the negative reinforcement system?
Test volunteers at Sungway Testing Facility Designation WLGF-9613 are contractually required to maintain their physical health. Behavior that impedes or harms their own health incurs automatic negative reinforcement.
Meyer stood frozen to the spot. He stared up at the hologram monitors, trying to understand. He looked at the names on the manifest. Computer, he asked, then swallowing hard. Show me Savid Gupta. A new hologram monitor opened in front of him. On it, he saw a habitation room. It wasn't blank like here in operations. There were bookshelves and framed pictures on the walls. He could even see a wash basin and the edge of a toilet. Most of the image was taken up by a bed. Meyer squinted, hoping he wasn't seeing what he thought he could see. The bedsheets were stained rust brown with old blood, a stain that Meyer now realized was on almost everything in the room. And on top of the bed, in a tattered Sungway-issued jumpsuit, was Savid, or at least most of him. Savid was curled, his knees pulled close to his chest. That made it easy to see that his feet were missing. Savid's legs ended in raw, skinless stumps. Meyer thought he could see white flashes of bone amongst the exposed red flesh. Meyer clamped a hand over his mouth as he let out a desperate, guttural moan. He almost screamed when he saw the wall next to Savid slide open, like the doors here in operations. On the silent monitor, Savid and the entire bed he was on was pulled into the wall and out of the room. When Savid was finally out of sight, the wall closed behind him, and he was gone. Meyer looked around, desperate for answers. He needed to speak but could barely manage it. Where? He eventually managed. Where is Savid? Computer! The computer didn't answer. Instead, it changed the feed to the monitor. Meyer was now looking at another habitation room, just like Savid's. But there were two people in this room. One was Savid, no longer on a bed, but sprawled in a heap on the floor. There was no sound feeding to the monitor, but Meyer could see he was screaming. There was a woman in the room. She looked to be in the same awful state as Savid. Her clothes were also blood-stained, and she cradled one of her arms close to her chest. Her hand was severely injured. The woman was screaming back at Savid. She seemed hysterical, terrified of him. Sound. Meyer barely got the quivering word out of his mouth, but the computer understood. It added audio to the feed on the monitor, and a horrible sound filled operations.
No! I don't need to! I'm telling you, I'm not hungry yet!
It was the voice of the woman howling. Savid wasn't talking, just making awful wailing sounds that made Meyer feel like he was suffocating. But over all that noise was the all-too-familiar voice of the computer.
Test volunteers at Sungway Testing Facility, designation W, LG F-9613, are contractually required to follow the meal plans set out for them. If you continue to refuse your meal, you will incur negative reinforcement.
No!
The woman kept screaming.
Don't make me! I can't! I don't need to eat yet!
The computer, uncaring, stated plainly,
You will now experience negative reinforcement. The reinforcement will conclude when you have met your contractual obligations.
In almost an instant, a steel probe sprung out from a wall nearest the woman and plunged into her spine. Her screaming reached a pitch that made the audio feed from the room crackle. Meyer felt hot urine soak the crotch of his uniform. The woman on the monitor scrambled to get away from the probe in her back. She pulled off it, leaving the end of the instrument slick with blood. She fell to her knees, sobbing, hunched over what was left of Savid's ankles.
I'm sorry.
She was saying.
I'm sorry.
Meyer threw up his arms over his eyes as she sank her teeth into Savid's bloody stumps. "Turn it off!" he shouted. "Please fucking turn it off!" The hologram monitor blinked out of existence, and Savid's gut-wrenching screams no longer filled the operations room. Meyer stood for what seemed like a very long time, his head still covered by his arms. Eventually, he uncovered his face and spoke in a croaking voice. "Computer," he said, "show me the directory for the subject feeding system." A new hologram monitor opened, and Meyer scanned the rows and rows of text. He saw what he thought he would. Somehow, sometime 2 months ago, maybe during a botched update or just an incomplete boot cycle, the directory for the feeding system had copied the passenger list into the meal plans. No one had starved while Meyer was on his way. The computer had just forced them to eat each other. "Computer," Meyer instructed, "perform a system restore, using a restore point from 10 weeks prior." All hologram monitors closed as the computer restored itself back to a version with no directory errors. The lights were raised back to full brightness, and Meyer squinted through the glare.
All persons aboard Sungway Testing Facility, designation WLG F-9613. Your Sungway engineer, Henry Meyer, has ordered a full system restore. You may experience reduced service for all systems momentarily. Henry Meyer has been instructed to conduct a welfare check on all passengers and will speak to you shortly.